Let's sculpt a snail with model magic. To make our snail, we are going to need 2/3 of an ounce of white model magic. So we're going to take our 1 ounce piece that comes in the class pack and use a pair of scissors to cut that piece into thirds. 1/3 is going to be set aside, and then the other 2 pieces are going to be used to make our snail. The 2 pieces that we're using for the snail, we're going to want to cut those the long way. That's going to make it easier when we go to make the parts. So set aside 1 ounce and then keep 2 ounces that have been cut into long pieces. If one piece looks a little smaller than the other, choose that one. You're going to roll it into a short coil. This short coil is going to become the foot for the snail. Set that piece aside and take the next piece of white model magic that you haven't used yet. Roll that new piece into a really long coil. This long coil is going to be used to make the shell for your snail. As you're rolling it out, you want to make sure that it doesn't get too thin. It should stay about as thick as your pinky finger. That's a good thickness for your coil. Once you have it rolled out, you're going to start to turn up one end so that you can actually make a spiral shape out of it. And then once you are finished with that spiral, you want to take it and then figure out where the bottom of the shell is going to be. Usually that's where the spiral ends, and give it a little bit of a tap on your table surface so that it is flat. That is going to be used for the shell for your snail. It's time to attach the shell to the foot of the snail. So get that first piece. You want to figure out where you want the end of the shell to be. Should it be closer to the head end of the snail or the tail end of the snail? So you make that decision, and then you are going to very gently press the 2 pieces together with the shell standing up on top of the foot. You're going to want a little bit of a longer piece coming out near the front for the head, so that way you can fit the eye stalks on it a little bit later, and maybe even tilt the head up a little bit so that your snail looks really cute, like it's peeking upward. Now for eye stalks, you're going to be using some chenille stems or pipe cleaners, and these will stick better if you dip them into some white glue first. So dipping them in the white glue helps the chenille stems to stay in the model magic after it hardens. So you're going to do that for each of the eye stalks for your snail, and then very carefully poke them into the front end where the head is. Be really careful not to poke all the way through to the bottom though. You don't want to stab all the way through the entire piece of model magic, and then you're going to let this sit and harden for at least 24 hours. Our snail sculpture is now completely hardened, and we can add some color to it with watercolor. The first thing we're going to do is prime our paints by adding a little bit of water into the colors that we want to use for our snail. You might be choosing different colors than what I'm using, and that is totally fine because your snail is uniquely yours. So I'm going to start by painting the foot of the snail. Remember, that's the bottom part, and I'm using yellow. Again, you could use any color that you want. I'm moving on to painting the shell of the snail now. I'm using orange. Again, you could use any color that you'd like for your shell. It might not be orange, but I am going to paint the entire shell. It's going to get a little bit trickier now because I don't really have any spot that I can really hold my snail. So I might have to put it down onto my work surface and then just flip it over and do the other side. Just be careful that you have something there to protect your table, like a messy mat. Before I flip the snail over to paint the other side, I'm going to add something a little bit special. I am using my green paint and flicking it to make some little spots on the foot of the snail, and then I'm going to use my red paint to make some little red flecks on the shell. This is a fun way to add a texture or pattern or detail to your sculpture. And now we're moving on to the other side of the snail. And again, I'm going to fill it in with the orange paint. And then just like I did on the other side, I'm going to add some of those fun little details like the paint speckles and paint splatters on the foot and on the shell. And when that is completely done, we just need to wait for it to dry. It should be dry again in 24 hours or less. And when it is completely dry, you may want to add a nice shiny finish to it with a spray of triple thick high gloss. That makes it look really durable and beautiful. There is one last detail that I almost forgot. We want to take our pipe cleaners or chenille stems that we use to make the eye stalks, and on the very end you want to bend them over a little bit because that's where the eye would be at the top of the stalk. So give those pipe cleaners or chenille stems a little bit of a bend to create your eye stalks for your snail, and now it can sit and dry. And here is the finished snail sculpture.